Hey, welcome into another edition of the Water Cooler Podcast presented by Skol Marketing. I am your host, Hunter. Joined with me are my lovely colleagues, Mr. Drew Coolum
Why, hello there.
and Abe Fortier.
Hello. Cheers.
All right, guys, today we are diving into a topic that is very near and dear to every social media manager this day and age. How do you actually stand out online? There is an increasing sentiment that the internet may be becoming a little boring. You're seeing the same things. Algorithms aren't necessarily feeding you the most original content. How do you break through and stand out as something original? We're going to dive into that and a whole lot more on this week's episode of The Water Cooler. Okay, guys, so content these days can get a little repetitive. Online brands are a lot of times using similar formats, and the internet, in a sense, can become a little boring, a little stale. So today we're going to dive into some content pieces that stood out, stuff that caught our attention, stuff that stopped the scroll. My first example that I'm bringing to the table comes from a creator who did a meal prep video. So the video starts off with a quick overview of him stacking about 24 Crunchwrap Supremes together.
Nice.
And showcasing why he does this every weekend. That's kind of his hook, to have an easy protein-packed meal every week. So this guy goes through this process of making these homemade Crunchwrap Supremes, same ingredients as Taco Bell. You got the ground beef, you got the lettuce, the tomato, the sour cream. So very visually appealing here. And the way he hooks you in is he stacks up about 24 of these in rapid motion. So it's sort of like a time-lapse video. And he goes through the step-by-step process of how to make these. So it's not only like the visual appealing nature of a Crunchwrap Supreme, but he's giving you really practical advice on how you can save money, make honestly higher quality than Taco Bell. He actually throws a little shade at Taco Bell in the video, saying that like their protein isn't the highest quality, basically, that processed ground beef, which, yeah, keep that away from me.
Mystery meat.
Yeah, the mystery meat. He talks about basically how you can essentially save money by making this at home. And he does this in a very visually appealing way. Like I said, showcasing the recipe, but also that time lapse of stacking up the Crunchwrap Supremes. So in a world full of people trying to give health and fitness advice, I feel like this guy really hit a great moment there, because not only is the Crunchwrap Supreme a popular item, something that's familiar, you can picture what it tastes like because we've probably all had it dozens of times. But he gives you that practical advice, hits on the health aspect of it, saves you money, has fun doing it. I thought it was just a winner, and it caught my attention because a lot of times those more like health-focused videos can get a little sterile and not necessarily stand out. But this guy did a great job of stacking up those Crunchwrap Supremes and making me want to spend my weekend meal prepping some Crunchwrap Supremes. So that's a piece that stood out to me recently. What has stopped the scroll for you guys recently?
Yeah, I think for me, something that's been really engaging all week or this past week was I think there were 3 categories here there was the McDonald's CEO trying
Great callback.
trying their product, which was really cringy and just like really bad.
The big arch.
Yeah. And then all of the videos of then like different CEOs trying their food in like a much better way was like I had to watch every single one just because it was fun to watch. Mm-hmm. And then there was another category of just like comedians then spoofing the whole thing of just like pretending to be a CEO and just like making a really exaggerated, funny response to it. So that was something that it felt very culturally impactful, like all of the different people coming together around this.
It was a moment.
Yeah, it was definitely a moment. And I wanted to catch every single video in it.
Did you see his statement? That's like, you guys are like stretching this out way too long. All I did was take a bite of it. He's responding to the backlash with more backlash. It's just the perfect environment. I love it.
Yeah, I think Burger King did a great job of responding to it. They seem to be the quickest, and their CEO basically kind of wiped the McDonald's CEO pretty quick, which is funny that it came from McDonald's first, right? Like, we've talked about this on this podcast before, but like McDonald's is the fast food restaurant, and for their CEO to kind of have that front-facing content that turned out to be a little bit of a PR nightmare is just kind of ironic because they're such a big fish, or big fish fillet, if you will. Fillet of fish, whatever the heck it's called.
Yeah. I'm curious to see if that PR, though, actually benefited them in the long term. And if it was, I mean, sometimes I put my tinfoil hat on and I'm like, okay, knowing that they are a multi-billion-dollar corporation, do you think that this could have been scripted? And that his reaction, or like the way that he even, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like things could be that over-engineered when you get to the highest level or the highest playing field, that maybe it was for some PR, whatever. Like it was a ploy to get people's just talking about it, which then eventually will get people in the store.
Yeah, I mean, if that is the case, if they stumbled into it, it was a brilliant stumble.
Yeah.
Because everybody's talking about it. Other CEOs got engaged. And there's also kind of this opportunity now for a trend online for independent creators to go out and try the burger.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot more people are going to care about the big arch now than they would have had that video not come out.
Right.
Because, McDonald's releases new menu items all the time. Some of them a little bit more beloved than others, like the snack wrap that came back last year. But yeah, this one I feel like would have been a little more under the radar had it not been exposed in this way, which just goes to show you the power of content, really.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I also feel like this is like a perfect opportunity for smaller businesses or restaurants. This is a trend they could easily hop on. I saw like small burger joints doing the exact same thing, where it was just some like Midwest guy being like, "Hey, I'm John. I guess I'm here to try my burger," where he doesn't even really know exactly what he's doing, but like then the video has like 200,000 likes because it's just so funny to see like an average guy actually do this challenge, and it's a lot more like heartwarming and fun, but it still is also kind of just like boofing the McDonald's guy, which is funny. I don't know, it's really it was cool.
And that's authenticity, boys.
Yeah,
that's some authentic content. Drew, what was a content piece you had in mind that you wanted to bring to the table?
I saw a couple, but one that comes to mind, and there's kind of been a resurgence of it, at least on my feed, is the not being able to predict your next move. And it's like a meme. I think the one that I saw, I can't recall the creator, sorry. But it was like trying to predict the next move in the stock market or something. And it just shows like a guy, like he looks like he's about to mount his bike, and then he swings his leg all the way over the bike, throws like a backpack over his shoulder, but then he like spins the backpack all the way around, grabs a water bottle out of the backpack, unscrews the cap, and then eats the cap.
Or like never let them know your next move.
Yeah, never let them know your next move. And I think that is like one of those trends that maybe isn't applicable to every single industry, but it's pretty universal, where you could, there's things that you can't predict in most industries, so you could hop on that trend and apply that to something. So that's one that caught my eye, and I always think is funny when it's done well.
One thing we've talked about in this space off camera is sort of the formula that goes into these, right? We've touched on it in the past about hooking the audience, having an effective first few seconds to get people engaged. And it's amazing to see the difference in types of videos that do this successfully. So we've talked about Mr. Beast shorts, particularly one from Beast Games, right? Where the contestant, if they memorize the pattern and they walk down the certain pattern, they could win $10,000 or whatever the case may be. And we had discussed that formula is like the perfect short form formula because there are multiple hooks throughout the 30-second video. There's one right in the beginning, there's one about halfway through, and one kind of at the end. And to your point, like that video you just discussed, Drew, about never let them know your next move, that probably doesn't have like a super, scientific content formula behind it, but it has an engaging concept because it hooks you in about the topic of stock market. It shows you an unexpected visual of the guy getting on the bike and going crazy and doing all that other stuff, and ultimately catches your attention and stands out from other content. It's not like adhering to a certain formula. It's original in its own way, yet it still hits those key points of having a hook and engaging subject matter.
Yeah, I think that one works because you as a viewer are anticipating it to get weirder and weirder. So you want to watch the whole thing to see how weird it gets. So I feel like that is like one of those that's like such a perfect hook because it keeps you there, because you want to keep, there's just like all this anticipation for what is coming next that you watch it all. And then that's obviously the algorithms reward that.
So I want to get into kind of a real world example from us here at Skol. Recently, we hopped on the trend of using baby photos to explain kind of our current roles as adults, trying to tug on the heartstrings a little bit, show the human side of our brand, and show that the people that you're working with were once children and were innocent and have now evolved into these professional adults. Abe, you were kind of the mastermind behind that campaign. What was some of the thought that went into it, and why did you gravitate towards it?
I think I've been trying to think of ways to showcase our team members more on social media, just because I think that's really important, especially because like we work with small businesses, and I think small businesses, like the company they use for marketing is like similar to them. And I've been meaning to find a way to showcase our baby pictures just because I think that's really funny. So then when I stumbled across the idea on like LinkedIn to have like a team member post, but you're all babies and then you're describing what you do at the company, I just thought it was so funny because it kind of sucks you in a little bit because it's okay, we're seeing these baby pictures, but I don't know, how do we explain it? It's in the context of working adults, and I don't know, it was like a weird contrast.
You want to see everyone as well.
Yeah, it was a weird contrast, but it was funny and it was sweet, and it was just a nice way to promote the team, and I think it worked pretty well.
Yeah, it hits a lot of emotions. It's like humorous, but it also tugs on your heartstrings because it's like, oh, you know, like that they actually look like that.
Yeah,
they were just
little
like sweet
babies.
little innocent kids. And then it also hits that professional side too. It's a unique campaign, and I think it came together really well. And it was really cool to see everyone else start doing it days after, or like the same day even. Kudos to you for having that insight and seeing like, okay, yeah, this is something that's definitely going to catch like wildfire. So I got to hop on this right away. And I think that is a good segue to a question is, when do you think brands should join trends and when should they skip them? Depending on your industry, there's a lot of trends out there on the internet right now. But I think that if something doesn't necessarily fit your brand or feels like you're forcing it, like I don't know if we could necessarily hop on the take a bite of a burger trend, but it doesn't really feel like it's core to us or like
Authentic.
It's not authentic, right? Exactly. It goes back to authenticity. And so if we're trying to just hop on a trend just because we think that the numbers are going to obviously be in our benefit, then we're forcing it and it doesn't feel as authentic. People can pick up on that pretty quickly, even subconsciously. However, if it is like adjacent to your industry, say it's like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of my example from earlier, like the not being able to predict your next move. And it's something like us, like maybe we have a caption that says, trying to predict the Google algorithm in the new age of search or something like that.
Or like Meta's next move, trying to figure out how Meta's going to change their, something like that.
Yeah, and that's like pretty core to the struggles that we're facing now, obviously. So being able to come up with a humorous or just like clever way of hopping onto a trend and actually like fitting it into our narrative makes it feel a lot more authentic and less forced, which then I would say is a win.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the beauty of the baby photo trend, right? Because our product, in a sense, is our service, which is provided by our team members. Therefore, our version of the big arch is us, right? Like we are kind of the product there. So being able to kind of showcase us is why it worked for our company, right? I think you made a great point that, you know, the burger trend wouldn't necessarily make sense for us because we don't sell burgers. We're not in the food space really. I mean, we could maybe encourage it to one of our like restaurant clients, but it's not necessarily true to us. Therefore, something like the baby photos is a lot more in line and ultimately provided better results.
And so what I would suggest to businesses, if they are looking to hop on trends and be like one of those that are just like early adopters of a trend, to look for ones that are either like universal, like the baby one, I feel like could apply to almost anyone just because, you know, if humans are involved, you can do that. So I would say try not to be so niche, try to pick ones that are spreading like wildfire, but are also apply to you.
Really try to think about what trends will last longer. Like I feel like that burger trend, you get like I would say like a week max. Like if you're a restaurant and you want to like do that yourself, I feel like you have a week. But I feel like with the baby picture one, that's one where I feel like you could kind of do that whenever. Like it's one of those, what's the term? Evergreen?
It's evergreen.
Yeah. Or like it that holds up to the test of time. Like that's just something that will always work out. But yeah.
It's almost sometimes better to wait on it, because I feel like when that trend comes out and something is actually like spreading, being a part of that, there's so much noise on the internet, right? And there's consumer burnout is real, you know, and if an audience is continuously seeing the same post, they have fatigue over that. And so even waiting on something that does feel more evergreen can actually boost your ratings on it. So
makes you stand out as more original. You're not just hopping on the trend for the sake of being a part of the trend. You're actually kind of making it your own and making an effort to stand out.
Right.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Water Cooler Podcast presented by Skol Marketing. Are you going to hop on those trends, or are you going to think twice? That is my question for you. Thanks as always for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow our social channels. And one quick send off from our guys. We got Drew and Abe. Be well, everybody. We'll see you next time.